So with that, welcome everybody. This is the Community Development Department's information session about the Cottage Food Operations Permit. Today we're going to cover some brief introductions about the Community Development Department as well as ISD. And we're going to talk about what a Cottage Food Operations Permit is, who should apply, what to do and collect before you actually apply for the permit, the application process itself, and we will have a little bit of Q&A. Before we get started, just one quick important item of note: this webinar is being recorded. So folks, certainly let me know later if you have any questions about that. I am going to share my screen so that we can start looking at some of the slides that I've put together. We've got some helpful tips for you. Because of the way my home system is set up, it's probably not going to be possible for me to fully see the screen all the time if I'm sharing my slides. So because of that reason, if folks have some questions, please use the chat feature. We will probably address all questions at the end of the presentation. So certainly don't feel as if you need to keep your thoughts to yourself, but if you put it in the chat feature, we will definitely address the questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to share our presentation. As mentioned, this is our agenda for the day. And these are some brief tips to help people with Zoom. If there are some folks who are still getting used to the platform, folks will probably be unmuted for the whole time. But if by chance someone has to leave and call back in on your phone, just please do a double check to make sure that you are muted. And for those that might be interested for later sessions, the Zoom feature that allows you to see every single speaker at once is Gallery View. The tab for that is located in the upper right-hand corner. Not so much for this particular webinar, but for future sessions, you might find that to be helpful. So with that, the Community Development Department is the department I work for. We offer the following programs that are targeted to support local women and historically disadvantaged business owners. Through the following efforts. We have great technical assistance programs, including our business development workshops, small business coaching, 10-week business planning class, the food business incubator program, which might be of particular interest to those folks who are on this call. We are in the process of building out that program for this year. We're hoping to offer some really exciting workshops in the next few months and one-on-one meetings. And of course, our small business grant program includes our small business enhancement program, storefront improvement program, and the retail interior accessibility program. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Kristen Fernandez, who's here with us today to introduce herself as well as the Inspectional Services Department.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Kristen Fernandez. I work at Inspectional Services as a sanitary inspector. ISD has a lot of different things that they inspect. We have building, electrical, plumbing, as well as zoning and short-term rental info here.
Thanks, Kristen. We'll move on now to the bulk of our presentation. The actual cottage food operation permit itself. So what is the cottage food operations permit? Specifically, it is a type of food handler's permit that is required for cottage food operations in Cambridge. And specifically, a cottage food operation is defined as a person who produces cottage foods that are products that are only in residential kitchen of that person's primary residence and only for sale directly to the consumer. The end food product must be prepackaged prior to sale with an ingredient label. Who should apply for this particular cottage food operations permit? Cottage food operations permit are strictly for people who want to conduct direct-to-consumer sales. And direct-to-consumer sales just simply mean that you are going to sell your product to the end person who is going to actually eat it. Direct-to-consumer sales can often occur at events like farmers markets, craft fairs, or even sales by the internet. And this is an important distinction because the opposite of direct-to-consumer sales is what we call wholesale. Wholesale means that you are selling your product to some other business. It can be a retail store, it can be a restaurant, and then that business will sell your product to the end person who's actually going to eat it or use it. And the reason we make this distinction is because the wholesale sales require a specific additional license. It's called a wholesale food processor license, and it is obtained by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Food Protection Program and not through the city of Cambridge. If you want to sell your product via wholesale, we strongly suggest that you get in touch with the state, and have included some contact information at the bottom of this slide. The phone number is 617-983-6770 to speak to someone at the state about the wholesale food processor license. Most importantly, and I think this is probably where we will spend the bulk of our time today, talking about what the cottage food operations permit covers in terms of the kinds of foods that you can safely make in your home versus those that are not allowed under the permit. So the very specific list are things that are under the state sanitary code that do not require temperature control for safety. Specific items in this category include the ones that we've listed here. It's baked goods like cakes and cookies, confectionaries, as well as jams and jellies. This is a comparatively short list, but these are the items that are allowed under the cottage food operations permit. And to help with the distinction for what's not covered, and these are items that people might commonly think of as being items that could be safe, but in fact, these items require refrigeration and therefore are not allowed. When you are thinking about whether or not the type of business that you want to run out of your residential kitchen could be eligible for this kind of permit, please consider what kind of items you're using and whether or not any of them require refrigeration. Because if the answer is yes, then unfortunately this permit will not be able to help you. So just to really go through the details of this, the specific things that this permit cannot cover would be things like cream-filled pastries, cheesecake, custards, vegetables that have been cut, fruit that has been cut, sauces like tomato sauce, barbecue sauce, salad dressing, any kind of pickled products, and any kind of relishes. Also worth mentioning, no cannabis products. This is not the permit for that. If you are interested in any kind of cannabis-baked products, please apply for a cannabis business permit. We have a link here, and you can also email me anytime because I cover that program as well to help with cannabis items. Some things to think about before starting your application for the cottage food permit. We have put together a personal checklist so that you can double check what you need. First, we strongly recommend that people get familiar with the state's regulations, specifically the Retail Food Code standards for permitted residential kitchens. We also recommend taking a look at sections 105 CMR for the good manufacturing practices, as well as information about labeling. It's going to be very important to spend some time getting to know the labeling requirements because these codes apply to residential and home kitchens, and they also cover rules for food preparation, food storage, personal health and hygiene, cleaning process for all the operations in the home and in the kitchen, and also cover how your labels are going to have to look when you are applying for your cottage food permit. So this is an important section to spend some time with and to sort of get to know before you start your application with the city of Cambridge. Additionally, it's a really good idea to do kind of a quick home assessment of your setup because the following regulations apply for how your residential kitchen is set up. Most importantly, only one person per residence can produce food at a time. Pets that are on premise must be out of the preparation area during prep time. The premise must be insect and rodent proof. The toilet room must be clean and be in sanitary condition. The food contact surfaces must be smooth and easily cleanable. The equipment must be in good repair. And if you are using a domestic or home style dishwasher, A maximum registering thermometer or a temp thermal label is required to determine the internal temperature of the machine to be held at 150 degrees Fahrenheit after the final rinse and dry cycle. Additional things that are going to be important to take a look at: allergy awareness certification. We have a link here. Food protection manager certification. This will be very helpful for covering a lot of the items that we talked about earlier. And you might want to familiar yourself with the Cambridge Hawker and Peddler's license. This is an additional license that you would need to apply for if you were interested in some of the avenues that we mentioned earlier where direct-to-consumer sales commonly occur. Places like farmers markets and places like retail craft fairs. The Cambridge Hawkers and Peddlers license is a license that simply enables your business to be able to do business at places that are not typical brick and mortar locations. This is a section that we put together to help people think about the kinds of documents that they will need to gather after they've done the research, after you've looked at the state codes and the regulations regarding ServSafe certification. These documents are things that should be with you when you sit down to the computer to fill out your application. So the first thing you're going to want to have with you is a signed letter from your property owner or the manager giving permission for you to do this work. We have included an example of what a model landlord letter could look like so that you can feel confident that you have reached out to your landlord with the information that the city is looking for. You will also need to have a full list of all the food items that will be produced and distributed. You will need a full list of sources for all the ingredients that you will use. It's important to note that those items should be in a Word document form or in a PDF. Photographs and/or drawings that show where your food is stored are going to be important to gather ahead of time and have with you when you sit down to apply. Photographs that show the product label, including a full ingredient list, is required. You will also need the type and brand of sanitizer that you're going to use. And please note that only 2 kinds of sanitizer are allowed: bleach or quaternary ammonium. In the slides that are coming up, we're going to talk about those 2 in a little bit more detail in case they might be new for some people. We also recommend that when you sit down to apply for your application that you have photographs of the maximum registering thermometer or the thermal label results proving minimum 150 degrees Fahrenheit after final rinse and dry cycle on your dishwasher. We will talk about this in detail as well, since this also might be a little bit new for some people. When we were discussing before about what the different labels look like that you will need to have photos of for your cleaning products, please look for this information if you are going to be using bleach. So for the bleach label information, you're going to want to make sure that there is an EPA registration number on the container. Bleach can be used as a sanitizer as long as it states on the label that it can be used on food contact surfaces. Quaternary ammonium label. This is an example of what this label looks like. The sanitizers have different concentration directions on the label. Water temperature should be 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit in order for test strips to accurately measure the concentration. And I had mentioned before this item regarding the temperature of your dishwasher. There are 2 different what are called thermal labels and max registering thermometers that you can look for in order to demonstrate that your dishwasher is going to be operating accurately for the kind of work that you're looking to do. The thermal labels are examples here at the top of this picture, and at the bottom is an example of what the maximum registering thermometer device would look like. We've put together some additional resources that we highly recommend looking at before and after and during this entire process. Again, the state sanitary code. We also have links for the retail food code standards for permitted residential kitchens. That's from the state. We also have some state residential kitchen question and answer brochures. These are very helpful because the questions that you have are certainly questions that others have had. And so there's a lot of information that you can get from those brochures. We have a list for some minimum requirements for packaged food labeling. That's going to be very helpful as you sit down to think about how your labels are designed, including information about food allergen labeling and the model landlord letter that I mentioned earlier. So let's talk about the application process. When you start the online application, please know that you are going to be going to a part of the city's website that is a growing website. The city has started putting more and more permits on its platform called Viewpoint. What we've done is we've included a link here that will take you to the Viewpoint homepage. So you will see that when you get to this homepage, not only are you going to be looking at the inspectional services section, you're going to be looking at every single city section. So we're going to give you some information about how to find what you're looking for. But first and foremost, set up an account. And when you create your Viewpoint account, one thing that will be very important is to pick an email address that you can check regularly, that you know is reliable, and that you have access to. The reason that's important is because the Viewpoint platform is going to act as the primary communication tool between you and the city. City staff who are trying to interact with you and ask questions about your application are going to be sending you questions through that platform. And the platform sends you a notice through your email. So just bear in mind that when you're setting that up, your email address is going to need to be in good working condition and something you can easily access. When you get to that site on Viewpoint, here's a little look of how the landing page kind of seems and is in the layout. We've included a direct link here so that if you just want to simply type it in, you can go right to the section that is going to allow you to apply for the cottage food operations permit. But for folks who want to go through sort of step-by-step, kind of visually the manual way, you can see we've included a little section here that shows what the inspectional services little icon looks like, so you can sort of quickly see it on the page. And if you need paper copies, please contact 617-349-6100 for paper copies. One thing to take into account for this application process is that the list of materials that we recommended that you have with you when you sit down are all going to be uploaded to the platform. So you'll see here that when you are moving through the different sections of the application, at some point you're going to come to a page that looks a lot like this, where you're going to be prompted to upload documents, which will be either the Word documents that we talked about, or the PDFs, or the photos. Here's a brief overview of how the application process is going to work. Once all the required documents have been uploaded, a city staff member will be reviewing everything that you have provided. ISD will schedule a time for a city staff member to then inspect the residential kitchen of the person who is going to be applying for this permit. So there will be a home visit. Upon satisfactory inspection, the cottage food operations permit application is approved and the applicant can pay for and pick up the approved permit itself. The cost is $100. The cottage food operations permits are valid for 1 year from the time of application, and it's very helpful to set a reminder in your calendar because the responsibility will be on you to renew the application in a timely manner. So we're now at our question and answer section. Just briefly, one of the things we wanted to talk about before we dive into the individual questions that folks have raised, and I can see both in the chat and in the Q&A, we've got a few that are lined up. I haven't looked at the details of that yet, but I see that they're there. One question that has come up a lot: if I get a cottage food operations permit and my friend wants to also be able to cook something in my kitchen, can they do that? And the answer is no. The cottage food operations permit is a kind of food handler permit, which means that the permission is being granted to you as a person. So your friend will need to apply for their very own cottage food operations permit for their own business. They will need to upload their own photos that show their own labeling, as well as their own ingredient list. And the other question we often get: if I want to make cookies for my friend to sell at their table at a farmer's market, do I need a cottage food operations permit? No, the cottage food operations permit is for those who sell directly to the end consumer, not to someone who will then resell the product. So if you want to go to a farmer's market and you want to sell directly to a consumer, that's great. But if you want to make something that your friend sells at a farmer's market, that's not allowed under these circumstances. If that's what you would like to do, then you would require a wholesale food processor license. So we hope that that has been a helpful explanation. I'm going to put our contact information here so that folks can copy it down, take a photo. Anyone who is registered for this webinar is going to get a copy of these slides. So you will have this sent directly to your inboxes for your own reference so that you can review the information that was talked about here. You can contact myself, you can contact Kristen, but we'll keep it up for just 1 second more, and then we will turn it over to our question and answers. So I think we should now be able to see everything that's happening. Let's look at our question and answer. And if you don't mind, Kristen, do you want me to just sort of read them off? And then if it seems like something that would be best for you to step in, you can sort of help answer them. Does that seem all right?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So it looks like our first question is, how do you define a shelf-stable food? Do you need to pay to have your kitchen inspected? Do you need to be ServSafe certified? Do you need to have a social security number? So I think for shelf-stable food, we did cover that one. So if I'm not wrong, Kristen, the best answer is if it's requiring refrigeration, then it is not shelf-stable. So it's got to be something that literally could sit out on a shelf outside of your refrigerator for years and years and years.
You got it.
And do you need to pay to have your kitchen inspected? My understanding is that the cost for the permit, that $100 fee, will occur at the end after the inspection has occurred. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. And I don't think, so to my knowledge, I believe that we are requiring people to be ServSafe certified. I can send information if folks would like, but I believe we have a link in our webinar that people will be able to see when these slides get sent around. There's a lot, for folks who haven't done it yet, there's a lot of great options for ServSafe certification. There are some really good trainings online, so you can kind of go at your own pace. So it's hopefully not too burdensome of a process. And do you need to have a social security number? That is a good question. I believe that the Viewpoint platform asks for a social security number, but I'm not sure if it's a required field or not. So I could probably look into that and send an answer when I send out those information slides. Do you know anything further about that, Kristen?
Not sure.
Okay, we'll get you folks that information. Slides will definitely be available after the webinar. That was another question that we had. Do you need to use a dishwasher or can you wash by hand? My understanding is that a dishwasher is required. Is that true, Kristen?
No, you can wash by hand, but we would have to come up with a plan to wash by hand.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you so much for clarifying. And last question, if I don't sell my cookies to my friend for resale at a farmer's market, I give the cookies to them instead. Do I need a permit at all? Well, I don't know if I want to get into the territory about the difference between a gift versus selling something, but I think that what the spirit of this permit is trying to guard against is that we don't want a situation where someone has made something in their home that is going out to the public that could potentially pose a health and safety risk. So I would say it is in everyone's interest that you not give gifts to your friend who's then going to resell them at a farmer's market. We would strongly encourage that you get the permits necessary for making that business transaction a safe one. Let's take a look at some of the other questions we've got here. Can you also have a wholesale permit on top of a residential kitchen permit, or would that need to be made in a commercial kitchen? So Kristen, this is probably one that's going to come up a lot, is how the wholesale permit and the cottage food permit interact.
Right. So what would happen is if you were applying for a wholesale license, the state actually gives you an inspection. So the state would actually come into your home for an inspection. So that's a little bit of the difference. There's a whole application process through the state. And then if you also had a residential permit from us, then there would be our application process and our inspection.
Awesome. Thank you for that. For folks who might see me looking down, I'm just taking notes about stuff that we need to be able to follow up with people on. So we'll have a short list of things that we are clarifying for folks. Primarily that question about the Social Security number. Next question. I'm curious why jams qualify, but pickles and condiments do not. Kristen, this is one that I know is sort of getting at to the heart of the issue of what qualifies as shelf stable. I have sort of like an informal answer in my head, but I think it would be best if folks heard it directly from the inspector.
Pickles and jam, two different things. I know jam can be heat processed and then shelf stable. Pickles normally need to be refrigerated. So relishes and pickles normally need to be refrigerated.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. Is it illegal for someone to cook non-shelf stable food and sell it from their home? So this one, I'm sure the question is like, what happens if someone tried to do this and they were like reported? What would the legal ramifications be? I think that's what this question is sort of getting at. I don't know if you've encountered any of this, Kristen, if you want to speak to it. I know that my guess is that there would be penalties, fees, and things like that that could come up.
I've never encountered this. I'm not saying that it doesn't occur, but that if you were to, I always put it in this circumstance. If you were to prepare food in your home and sell it to somebody and you were not licensed to do it, and something happened to that person, those people got sick, and I received a complaint from it, then I would have to do an investigation. And if I don't have a permit from you, then there's a problem.
Thank you. Next question we have, what about bake sales for schools and such?
So there is a whole little regulation that if with baked items for school events or such things as fundraisers, that it's allowable.
Thank you. Next question, will the whole webinar be available after this or just the slide? The whole webinar, we're recording it, so we can easily send around the recording to folks as well. You can look at me and Kristen's beautiful mugs and watch information about this webinar time after time after time. Next question, I saw chocolates on the page with the allowed ingredients. Does chocolate count as a confectionery item?
Yes.
Next question, we've got from Wendy Robinson from Cambridge DPW, who announces herself as such. Hi, Wendy. DPW maintains sewers and drains. Biggest problem we have is grease in lines from residential units and restaurants. What steps will applicants be required to take to prevent the discharge of excess food wastes from warewashing?
Don't have an answer for that.
Yeah. Wendy, if you want to sort of talk offline with me and Kristen about any of this, certainly please reach out. I know my department, as well as Kristen's, we're always eager to work across departments and answer questions that might come up about these issues. So happy to help in any kind of a way. So this appears to be the last of the question and answers. I see some stuff coming in through the chat as well. I'm going to give just a quick peek over that, and I appreciate that folks are bearing with me while I work from one screen at home and toggle across stuff that is in different places. So let's get to the top. Looks like we have some of the same questions that are repeating in the chat, but it looks like this is a new one. I have a ServSafe certificate and a Massachusetts allergen certificate in my name from a previous job. If they are not expired, can I still use them and are they valid?
They're yours. They're yours until they expire. So if they were from a previous job, it doesn't matter. It's your certificate.
Excellent. Looks like some of these were also addressed. Someone had followed up, if we're checking on the social security number question, can we also check if an ITIN number would be okay instead? I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what an ITIN number is. It looks like some information might be coming in from folks. Maybe everyone in attendance can help me out with that one. Let's see. I'll try to do some quick Googling when this is over. I know the only other number I'm aware of is an EIN number that would be, apply for your business. But as we're doing research on whether or not the social security number is allowed, I'll look into what that is and get more information on that as well. Thank you to the person who asked about it. We've got one more question here, specifically question about condiments. So I'm sure this is going to be a big one that keeps coming up because I know why it's popular and I very much understand it. So one of the questions we've got is condiments that are heat processed would be okay, not okay. The person in question is thinking of a Bolognese condiment that is heat processed. I think, Kristen, thoughts?
I think that I would need to speak with you individually.
To that person, we've included some contact information for both Kristen and myself. We'll make sure that you get the information that you need. Oh, we've got information from someone who sent it in. Individual taxpayer identification number. Oh, okay, ITIN, I see. I don't know enough about how that works, so I can look that up and find out more information for you all about whether or not that would be needed. I tend to do a lot of work with the social security number, and I've not had the individual taxpayer identification number come up in any of my other platforms or applications. So I'm sorry that I don't have better information about that right now, but we can get it. And I think that looks like it's about it for now in terms of both the chat. Let's take a quick look over at the Q&A. Last question that seems to come in, what would it take to allow pickles and sauces?
I really would have to take a look at what it is that is being made. It's not something that falls underneath this regulation.
Yeah, thank you. I know that that's a common question and a regular one comes up. We understand why that's going to be a discussion point for a lot of folks. So we had allocated plenty of time for this particular webinar. We had it until 11 o'clock, but it seems like a lot of our questions have started to dwindle and I don't see any more coming in. So unless folks have anything else that they are eager to ask about, we will probably close this one up. It's just to reiterate that, again, my name is Christina Delisio. I work in the Community Development Department. The work that I do is a lot of small business support, grants, technical assistance. I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of work with cannabis businesses, do a lot of work with food businesses. Provided my contact information during the presentation and folks will be getting a copy of that. So I'd love to hear from anybody about anything that was presented here or any of the other work that I do. I'm going to sign off. Kristen, if you have any other parting words or advice for people who are thinking about this permit.
You have my contact information. If you have other questions, you can get back to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. We're getting a question about put out our contact information again. Oh, our names are not visible. That's interesting. Okay, well, for folks, I will quickly put my email address here in the chat so that folks can contact me. And I will put my phone number. And then if there's stuff that I can't answer, I will send it over to Kristen and follow up with other departments as needed. So I'll give folks a minute to copy that down. Okay. I don't see anything else coming in, so I think we're all set. Kristen, thanks for being available today. We really appreciate it. We know that the work you're doing is really busy and that this is a nice opportunity opportunity for folks to hear directly from you. So thank you so much for being available.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.